We got some more wild Habs prospect news as defenseman prospect Bogdan DOMINATING is helping lead his torpedo team to what could be one of the bigger upsets in the KHL over SKA, playing over 37 minutes in their last game. We have to dive into that. Plus, Florian Xhekaj is now up to a point per game pace after his most recent game. And plus, we gotta talk a bit about Joel Armia and how maybe some trade plans have changed, according to one insider. Stick around for all of that on this episode of Habs Digest. Jesse, we're going to open this video up with maybe some changing Habs trade plans. And, all the recent talk about Joel Armia has been that he's been playing maybe some of his best hockey of the last year or two with Montreal over the past few weeks. And Eric Engels wrote an article touching on exactly this. They basically said this recent sample, which isn't exactly small, is reason to believe Armia has finally unlocked something. Some fans would rather see him dealt immediately to cash in on whatever value he has. I think that's what they should do, but we'll get into that later. But the team's aiming to be much more competitive next season, and Armia helping the team be able to be more competitive next season could be worth more to Montreal than paying part of his salary and retention and accepting a middling draft pick to see him play elsewhere. Armia said, "I'm still learning to play more relaxed mentally, but for sure, the work I've been doing has helped me this season." And they say if Armia continues to show that over the final 21 games, he'll only open up more options for the Habs, including the one where he stays and helps them be the team they want to be next season. What do you think of this, Jesse? I get where he's coming from, but in my mind, it's like, I'm sure they can go find a veteran expiring forward to replace Armia if they can get something out of him. I don't see a world where if you get a decent trade offer for him, you don't pull the trigger.
Listen, it's great that Armia is playing well right now. He's having a little bit more of a shorter term memory, kind of erasing those if he's making a mistake on the ice, is having a little bit of a shorter memory. So it's nice to see him playing better because that's best for him. That's the best for the Montreal Canadiens now going into trade deadline week here, right? The simple fact of the matter is, though, it's just like we're always expecting a little bit more, right? And even though sometimes his goal totals, his points totals have been fairly similar, it just seems like we don't know quite what we're going to get, kind of from him, right? It's interesting to see there is some parity there in his totals, and he's definitely heading, for a career best, his former previous stat of being 28 points in a year. But I just feel like as Habs fans, so many of us, we're just kind of a little bit, I hate to say it, but like almost tired of having players that have the talent, like Armia, like Anderson, like the Drouins of the past, where it's like, they're there, but it just can't come out on a regular basis. That's why I feel like we don't know what we're going to get from Armia next year. And I feel like selling high, that's really the name of the game, at the trade deadline, right? So I feel like if you're Kent Hughes, you have to really look at it. But I mean, him playing better, no matter how this plays out, is better for everyone here.
Yeah, exactly. Whether they get a better trade package or if they decide to keep him and he keeps this up in the next season, it'd be awesome. I'm super happy for Armia, but at the end of the day, 3.4 million, you commit to that for another year. Like I said, if you trade him now, maybe you got to use retention, maybe you don't, you probably do, but you can find some kind of veteran forward next year, even if it's partially through the year, I'm sure, or you sign maybe a veteran forward to a 1-year deal to fill that winger spot. Like, Armia is playing great and he's really relied upon defensively, but at this point, I just don't see a world where if you get an offer that you like, you don't move on from Armia. But let's transition into maybe not some of the older guys, 30-year-old Armia. Let's talk about some of the younger guys, and we got to talk about Florian. Not Arber this time, it's Florian, and oh my gosh, he's on fire. You might have seen Hockey Junkie's video a couple days ago. Well, guess what? There's been a crazy update since then. In their most recent game, just yesterday, Florian Xhekaj puts up a goal and 2 assists, just ignore the faceoff percentage, on a +3. That now brings him up to a crazy landmark. He's now up to a point per game in the OHL. Now, I know a point per game in the OHL, well, that's not, necessarily, he's going to be a bona fide NHL talent, but for a guy his size with his skill set, this is absolutely ridiculous. And like we saw, Jesse, his goal total last year was 13, up to 31 this year. He's still a physical presence while he might have to work a bit on his skating. Like, this is incredibly encouraging, especially after all us Habs fans have seen Arber's development curve. You got to think Florian's not going to let that slide. He's going to do his best to kind of follow on that same trajectory.
He's going to do his absolute best. And now it's all but guaranteed that Florian Xhekaj is now going to get an opportunity with the Montreal Canadiens. It might have been an if and no, for sure. He's going to get a try with the big club. And he's this type of player, just like his brother Arber. I feel like once he gets that opportunity, he's not going to let it go. And that's not to say that there might be like some bumps in the road sometimes or everything. And again, a great reminder for all of us that we need to be patient when we're kind of tracking prospects development. But like this guy, I think at the end of the day, it's looking like now he's going to be able to carve out just some type of role with the Montreal Canadiens. Just that feistiness, right? Like we don't want to bet against Arber Xhekaj. We see what's happened to people that have done that to him in the past. It's not pretty at all. And I mean, you have to feel the same way about Florian. He had the name, now he's doing everything to really back it up, not only with the points, but then with that emotion, because that's another thing that's really going to ingratiate him to Martin St. Louis a lot. Is not only the talent, which obviously is a total prerequisite to playing in the NHL. It's like, but playing with that emotion, with that edge as well. Martin St. Louis wants to see that because he feels a lot from this team that we play well in the first, then we kind of get happy about playing well in the first, and then we take the foot off the gas in the second. Florian Xhekaj, he's not that type of player. He's not going to allow you to just kind of be happy. He's going to be going out there every shift, trying to gun people into the boards, stick on the ice, ready to make a play. So I think that's why, Martin St. Louis is really going to like this player a lot.
Yeah, like if he can hone in on his true skills, something that, hey, they've had to do a bit with Arber Xhekaj, right? Again, he was so raw, even coming into his first training camp, but he picked things up so fast. And I think Florian, whenever he makes that jump to Laval, which should be next year, I would imagine, that's going to be such a big help for him. Now, I don't expect him to be on the Montreal Canadiens roster. Well, potentially ever. Like, I don't want to say that, like, but, you never really know with these guys. But he got to go to Laval first. And I think seeing that pro jump, getting him working with the Habs coaches and stuff, I think it's going to be so valuable for him, Jesse. I'm willing it into existence that we're going to see Florian and Arber share the ice for Montreal one day. Every time I watch this kid, I'm just more and more impressed. But the final thing we got to talk a bit about is Bogdan. You guys love Bogdan. We love Bogdan. Bogdan Konyushkov. Oh my goodness. And if you've been following those Habs trade tournament posts that we've been making, you'll see that he was part of that original Mike Matheson trade that sent Matheson to Montreal. But we got a crazy thing to show you here. So Bogdan Konyushkov, well, he's been playing pretty well. Currently, Torpedo is playing in a playoff series versus SKA St. Petersburg. And SKA is pretty heavily favored, but Torpedo won game one and actually went up 2-0 in game two with Bogdan Konyushkov getting an assist on this goal, but that's not the only thing. Now, while they did end up losing that game in double overtime, as you can see here, Bogdan Konyushkov, as you can see at the bottom, logged 37.5 minutes in a double overtime loss. Igor Larionov is putting so much faith in Bogdan and the stuff he is doing. I know we've talked a lot about him, Jesse, but the stuff that he is doing, the amount of trust that a team has in this young 21-year-old defenseman in a league that is typically not very friendly to young players at all, let alone young defensemen, is almost otherworldly.
I'm so happy that we're getting the chance to talk about him. I mean, rightfully so. Like just putting up like close to 40 minutes, double overtime, like just showing what a true warrior he is, right? And if you're Kent Hughes and you're looking at your prospect pool for defensemen, it's like it's all about young guys that can really handle the pressure, right? That's the big litmus test. And Bogdan just keeps doing this time and time again to be this young of a guy, be put into a leadership role, put it logging that much ice time. Like I just love right now the crop of young defenders we have that kind of have like a little bit of a mean streak to them, right? Like imagine, a pairing somehow, of Xhekaj and Konyushkov. And we're even seeing Guhle from time to time where he's got a little bit of that edge to his game as well, right? He can play with that physicality. But that's the type of, kind of line, that defensive line that really interests me a lot going forward. Just these players that seem to have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder come playoff time. I'd be really excited to see that.
Yeah, he is really, really phenomenal. Now he's definitely still has some work to do. There's lots of clips surrounding Bogdan of some maybe poor defensive play at times, and his foot speed is maybe not the best, but at the same time, he is getting relied upon so much. He's a bit of an all-around guy. Like, he can still play solid defense. He can block shots when he needs to. He can spur an offensive rush. He can put up shots from the point, create some offense on his own. He's just one of those guys that if he does come over to Montreal, whether it's before the end of his contract or even in 2 or 3 years when his contract finally finishes up, Jesse, he seems like one of those guys that can just eat minutes. No matter where he goes, he's going to be a minute eater at the very least. One of those guys that's very rarely a negative on the ice. And but with the current Habs defensive prospect depth right now. We got Hudson, we got Reinbacher, we got Guhle, we got Mailloux, we got Xhekaj, we have Harris, maybe not for long, not sure. We have Justin Barron. Do you see a world where Bogdan does slot into this Habs defensive core as potentially a long-term piece within a couple of years, based on just what we're seeing right now? Because honestly, I'm starting to turn the corner and say that I think this guy could really make a difference for Montreal.
He's almost seeming like that ace in the hole that we have right now. And to be honest, I know it seems like a lot of prospects, but it's great to gather a lot. It might seem like a lot, injuries start happening, right? Every single one of these players, who might have play a very serious future, in part with the Montreal Canadiens, right? So absolutely, he's showcasing that. He's showing that he can be relied upon. Like, just the fact of, what's so hard is just being able to handle, all the pressure that's being put on you as a young defenseman, right? Just showing that he's able to do that is one of the biggest things. If you can almost do that, you can do a lot of the other things right on the ice. So for me, I'm seeing all that I need to see right now for Bogdan.
Yeah, I completely agree. But what do you guys think? Do you like Bogdan Konjushkov? I know a lot of you maybe haven't been following him super closely, but this guy has been, he's been quite good. So let us know down below if you think he could be a serious part of the Habs' future. But for now, that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you again for helping us hit 11,000 subs. We love all of your support. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.